It is a cold gray morning, and you walk out to the shed, and there it sits the way it has for as long as you can remember, red as the day it was born. You set the choke, you pull it through, and the old Farmall catches and settles into that steady beat you would know anywhere in the world. Your father started this same tractor 1,000 cold mornings before you were big enough to reach the pedals. The paint is faded and the seat is worn smooth to the shape of 3 generations of one family. And the company whose name is cast into that hood has been gone for 40 years. And somehow this machine never got the message. Before we dive in, hit subscribe and let me know where you are watching from. There was a time when that red tractor was the most dependable thing in a man's whole life. Steadier than the weather, steadier than the bank. You knew every inch of it. When it ran rough, you pulled the plugs and cleaned them at the kitchen table. You set the points by feel, and you had it running sweet again before the coffee went cold. There was a smell to that work, warm oil and gasoline, and the dust of your own field. And it meant the day belonged to you and to nobody else. You never once sat waiting on a stranger with a computer to tell you what your own machine was thinking. That Farmall asked you to understand it, and you did. And there is a quiet pride in that a younger man can barely imagine today. It did your work. It also made you the kind of man who could keep his own corner of the world running, and your children watched you do it from the barn door. And that is how they learned what it meant to stand on your own 2 feet. And that machine did not come from nowhere. Back in 1924, a company called International Harvester took a chance on a strange little tractor with its front wheels tucked in close together. A tractor that could finally drive straight down between the rows without trampling the crop. They were so unsure of it that they meant to sell the very first batch only in Texas, in case the whole country laughed at them. The country did not laugh. That Farmall did the work of a team of horses and a hired man both, and it never needed feeding when the day was done. And within a few short years it had changed what a single family could farm with 2 hands and a little ground. By the winter of 1974, that company had rolled its 5 millionth tractor off the line, the first maker anywhere on Earth ever to do it, and red iron had become as much a part of this country as the dirt it ran on. And being a red man meant something. There was a long stretch of years when it felt like every other farm on the road ran red, when the color of the tractor sitting in your yard told the whole county who you were and who your daddy had been before you. You ribbed the green men, and they ribbed you right back. And underneath all the joking was a loyalty so deep that the people who sold those tractors used to say their dealers bled red paint. You did not just own a Farmall, you belonged to it, and it belonged to a company you trusted, the way you trusted the turning of the seasons. And for most of 100 years, that trust never once let you down. You saw it at every county fair and every farm sale, rows of red iron and the men who loved it, trading the same old stories and the same tricks for coaxing a stubborn one to life on a frosty morning, because half the men standing there had grown up on the very same machine. It was a language you all spoke without ever saying a word. Then the trust ran out, somewhere you were not looking. By the end of the 1970s, the company had stumbled into trouble it could not climb back out of. There was a strike that dragged on for 172 days, the longest anyone could remember. And it began the same week the men learned that the new boss brought in from the city had quietly taken a bonus of nearly $2 million. Then the government shut off grain sales to Russia. The bottom fell out of the whole farm economy at once, and the yards filled up with red tractors that nobody could afford to buy. Over 3 years, the company lost close to $2.5 billion, more than any American company had ever lost in a single stretch. And then on the Monday after Thanksgiving in 1984, the men in the shop heard on the television set who had bought them. It was a Houston oil and gas company, an outfit that ran pipelines and sold mufflers and even owned gold mines out west, that had never grown a single living thing in its life, now owned the company that built your tractor. The new owners did not want the great red plant down on the Mississippi River where the Farmall was born, and they did not want the 5,000 men who had been building tractors there since 1926, 350 of them a day at the peak. What they wanted was the name and the red badge and the machines bolted to the floor, and not one thing more. And so, on the 14th of May, 1985, that long assembly line ran for the very last time. There was a man named Herbert Hall, who, as a young fellow back in 1926, had helped build the first tractor ever to come out of that plant. That morning in 1985, his own son drove the last tractor ever built there, straight off the end of the line and out the door. One family, the first machine and the last, standing at both ends of a story that had taken 59 years to tell. The men who stood and watched said they were sad, but they were proud. They had built the best there was, and they knew it, and now strangers 4 states away were quietly turning out the lights. And it was not only those 5,000 men, it was the small-town dealers too, the ones whose fathers had sold the red before them, who watched the company they had given their whole lives to decide that their loyalty was worth nothing on a balance sheet down in Texas. They had sold the red to their neighbors and their cousins and their friends, and now there was nothing left of it to sell. Now, a fair man owes the other side of this, because the truth holds up better than any grudge ever could. International Harvester was not brought down by outsiders alone, and the old hands will tell you so themselves. The company had grown proud and slow. It chased too many businesses at once, and never did any of them well enough. It rushed a new line of tractors out the door in the late 1950s before the drives were truly ready, and good men lost a whole season when those drives let go out in the field, and a few of them never came back to red again. By the time the real trouble arrived, John Deere had already slipped past them, building a little better and listening a little harder. The strangers from Houston did not start the fire. They only bought the company on the worst day of its life and finished putting out what was already burning down. A man can hold both of those truths in his hand at the same time and still feel like something was taken from him. The mistakes were real, and so was the loss. And the men who lived through it deserve to have both told to them straight. And here is the part that ought to put your shoulders back. Look hard at what became of the company that walked away from you. It passed from the oilmen to another owner, and then to another after that. Until today, the name cast into your hood is run out of a head office in the Netherlands, controlled by a wealthy family in Italy, while the work itself is being shipped off toward Mexico. The very plant up in Wisconsin that took over the day your Farmall plant went dark is being emptied out now too. The men who built that red iron for 175 years were told they had become too expensive, while the man at the very top is paid 350 times what they take home. And to put a bow on it, they painted a brand new tractor up in the stars and stripes and rolled it out to celebrate the country's birthday. Through every last bit of that, every owner and every country and every broken promise, your father's Farmall has sat right there in that shed and started every single time you asked it to. And you are not the only one who knows it anymore. The young men have started to work out what you understood all along. They will drive 3 hours with cash folded in a shirt pocket just to look at a clean old red tractor, because they have learned the hard way that a machine a man can fix himself is worth more than one he cannot, no matter what the sticker on the new one says. The parts are still on the shelf. The old iron still runs. It has quietly outlived every single owner who ever signed a paper over the top of it. And that is the real answer to the question. Your Farmall did not outlive International Harvester because it is worth more money than a new tractor on a dealer's lot. Because it is not, and you never once needed it to be. It outlived the company because it was built in a time when a machine was meant to belong to the man who owned it, all the way down to the bottom, and a thing you can keep alive with your own two hands does not die just because the company does. The boardrooms moved from Chicago to Houston to Racine to Amsterdam, and the men inside them have come and gone like weather, and not one of them ever once sat in your shed or knew your father's name. They were trading a name on a piece of paper. You were keeping a living thing alive, but the red tractor is still here. It still starts in the cold. It still answers to your hand. And one of these days, you will show a grandchild where the choke likes to stick and how to set the points by feel. And you will hand down the one thing no company in any country on earth could ever reach in and take from you, which is a machine that is truly, finally, yours. If this hit you somewhere, hit subscribe and tell me one thing. What model is the red tractor sitting in your shed, and who in your family was the one who bought it first?